Hi guys, Wayne Cameron again, continuing my series. Today we're going to open a can of worms here, talk about mouthpiece selection. Now, there are a million opinions about which size mouthpiece to use and all this kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, it's a very individual thing. Just because your mouthpiece works for you doesn't mean it could work for any of your students. For instance, if I have a new student who comes in and I see what mouthpiece they're using, I don't really start thinking about changing their mouthpiece at all till after about 4 to 5 months, after hearing them play for a while, and making sure that their fundamentals are as correct as they can be. You see, most people think mouthpieces can solve a physical problem, but it can't. If you're not supported correctly, no mouthpiece is going to fix that. If your embouchure is not developed, this mouthpiece is not going to fix that. If your high notes are weak and stuffy and choked off, a mouthpiece is not going to fix that. Now, mouthpieces can do some things, but you only start worrying about what the mouthpiece can do once from your lips back to your brain is pretty consistent with basic fundamentals. For instance, you have a student who says, I need more endurance, okay? So if I'm convinced that their physical fundamentals are pretty good, then we start talking about maybe a different mouthpiece could help your endurance. Now this is what you got to keep in mind. When you change mouthpieces to say increase your endurance, it may have you lose something else. For instance, the first thing you think about to increase your endurance using the mouthpiece is a shallower cup or a smaller diameter from edge to edge. Well, that in many cases can increase your endurance. However, it will reduce your volume and could give you a brighter sound. So let's say you have a beautifully dark tone, but you need more endurance, and so you're moving toward a smaller mouthpiece. Well, that's going to hurt to some degree your dark tone. So what you have to consider is, if I increase my endurance by 15%, am I willing to lose 5 to 10% of my dark sound? Well, you're the only one that can decide that. So a teacher can't just arbitrarily give you a mouthpiece without considering those things. Okay, let's say your low register is bad. You think a larger mouthpiece might help that. Well, sometimes it can, but not always. But then a larger mouthpiece, you're going to work harder temporarily for upper register. Is that worth the trade-off? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, just to willy-nilly change mouthpieces just out of the thin air is really irresponsible. And unfortunately, many teachers just do that. They don't even really give it any consideration. I have just recently, one of my students went off to college, and almost immediately, the trumpet teacher there made her change mouthpieces. And the reason he gave was, well, it's the same one I play, so it's probably good for you. Well, I really think that's irresponsible. Okay? Now, one other thing you have to look out for in mouthpieces is whether it's made consistently. And what I mean by that is, there are multitudes of very popular mouthpiece companies. You know what they are. I'm not going to name anybody. But some of the popular mouthpiece companies, their sizes are not consistent. For instance, there's a very popular mouthpiece, and I'm not going to name it, but the diameter from the inner edge to the inner edge is 6.3 millimeters. And that's on the maker's chart. every mouthpiece company has a chart that tells you what the specs are. Well, 6.3 millimeters is a very common mouthpiece, and you need one of these things, a caliper, to measure from the inner edge to the inner edge to see if it's 6.3 millimeters. Well, I've taken my calipers into a music store, picked out 5 or 6 mouthpieces of the exact same size of a very popular mouthpiece company, and not one of them was 6.3 millimeters. They were much larger. As a matter of fact, a couple of them that I saw were 2 or 3 sizes larger than the spec gave out on their website. So much larger that if a student changed to that mouthpiece expecting to feel this, it's going to be much larger, which is going to give them a lot of trouble. So when you go look for a mouthpiece, if you decide that that's what you want to do, or your teacher suggests that you get a mouthpiece, always ask them, what are we trying to improve? Don't be bashful. If they can't give you a reason why you change the mouthpieces other than it's one I like or this is going to help your tone, ask them what it's going to hurt. Don't be bashful. My students, I encourage them, if I don't tell you why I told you to do something, don't do it. And if I don't tell you why, you better ask me why, and I'll give you a concrete reason. But this is very important. Measure, no matter what brand you get, make sure that it's to their specs. Okay, if you have any questions, send me questions on my website. I'll try to answer it. Thanks a lot. See you later.